So I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. It's my pleasure to chair the meeting tonight. Our president, Jen Close, is not feeling well tonight. There are no actionable items out of closed session. I will say that this microphone sounds kind of loud. I will say that on real property, just as an FYI, as we discuss district real property, I know it may seem unsatisfying that people don't get to know about it, the details right now, but that's what the Brown Act does. It allows public agencies to negotiate over the value of property and transactions in safety. So it will happen as soon as we possibly can. So there are no items considered in closed session for action. Open session, are there any statements of abstention, C4? Seeing none? I will be abstaining on contract issues on E5, so we'll be pulling E5. I will be abstaining on E5, we're not going to pull it. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? Nope. Any board member requests for information? No. So I'm now calling for C7, the approval of minutes of the regular board meeting held on June 26, 2019.
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on June 26, 2019.
I'll second.
So that was moved by Jill.
I have one amendment to the minutes on June 26, and it's report outs from closed session, and it's regarding case number 1819-42. I flipped my case numbers around, and in that case, I would like to vote no. 1819-42.
So you're going to vote?
C3. So it was just the vote was called, and I was looking for some clarification from our very
in the minutes
capable clerk, and we flipped the case numbers.
Okay. So we're moving forward with the motion. With that
amendment.
Change. All right.
So I didn't quite catch what just happened.
Allegria moved that case 18-1942 on the June 26 meeting, and she stated her numbers wrong.
So I'm changing my vote. So it should be recorded as a no.
So her vote is changed to a no.
So the motion was moved by Director McCormick and seconded by Director Sheffield. Sorry, gotta get with the program. But Director De La Cruz is asking that it be changed to reflect her vote as a no instead of a yes for the case named here.
On those minutes.
Mm-hmm. Is that cleared up, Director
That
Medina?
changed.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying. So that's what happened, or is it a post change? So we're saying that that's what happened?
That's what happened.
Right.
So yeah. Okay.
All right, roll call vote.
Director McCormick? Aye. Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye. Motion passes. Minutes are approved. C8, approval of the minutes of the special board meeting held on June 19th, 2019.
I move to move forward with the minutes on June 19th with just one amendment to reflect that I was in fact there. Thank you.
with the change that Director Maneri was there.
Second.
So moved by Director Manieri and seconded by Director McCormick. May roll call vote, please?
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Medina?
Abstain.
Director Fong?
Aye.
One question. Director Fong, were you at the,
You came in late.
Yes, it was amended that I came in at 1 hour late, so I was there. All right, it is time for public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any blue cards? Yes, it's an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the board on non-agenda items. Comments on items that are on the agenda will take place during the discussion of that agenda item, and we won't take any action nor any discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. And should a member of the public have comments that pertain to a complaint against an employee of the district, the board advises that the matter should be first pursued using the appropriate district complaint procedure and through the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Stacy Spector. There are 3 cards, and they will be speaking in this order: Tammy Alfonso, Jana Adams, Mike Adams, 4 people, and Julia Quinn.
I'm sorry, I'm on an agenda item. Thank you.
I'm Jana Adams, and I'm here to just bring up the topic of dyslexia and how the school board and school district is implementing the guidelines that were outlined in the 1369 bill. The guidelines were provided by the state superintendent, and it goes over research-based programs that should be used for these kids instead of having to go through due process to get the kind of education that the kids deserve.
Thank you.
Good evening, distinguished school board trustees. Since retiring from teaching in Santa Rosa City Schools, I've expanded my affiliations within the private sector in our community. I recently had an opportunity to contribute to one of our teachers, Kate Gillespie, with help from one of the Hansel family's dealerships in Santa Rosa. I went and test drove a car. They in turn said, oh, here's a gift certificate for a teacher in your school district. And that happened just last week. So I asked their general sales manager, Julia Quinn, to speak to the board this evening about this program that directly benefits teachers, not just in Santa Rosa, but all over the country. So at this point, I just want to say thank you for allowing Julia Quinn, the general sales manager at Hansel Volkswagen, to address the board this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Mike Adams, thank you very much. Julia Quinn.
Hello, Julia Quinn. I'm the general sales manager of Hansel Volkswagen, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Hansel Automotive Group. And what I want to share with you today, some of you may have seen it on television, but there's tens of millions of dollars that Volkswagen has decided to contribute to teachers. On an average, I believe the state or the country's average is over $500 out of each teacher's pocket for school supplies. Now, I'm sure the district has plenty of money for other projects, but not necessarily the classroom needs. So there's a website called donorschoose.org, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So with no purchase necessary, as if any of you are aware of the Hansel family, they tend to do quite a bit for the community, and we always want to give back. So with no purchase necessary, just with a test drive of a Volkswagen, Volkswagen is spending tens of millions of dollars donating to different school districts across the United States. We are giving away gift cards for every test drive. And what I want to urge the community to do, for the teachers that are not signed up on donorschoose.org, This program will go on until August 31st, where you'll receive one of these coupons to donate to any teacher of your choice. Now, my understanding is to get on donorschoose.org, the teachers will have to submit a project to go on that website so that there's a place for them to donate. We're later going to do a drive on school supplies, which I'm sure there was an abundance at the beginning of the year, but we feel throughout the rest of the year there may be other needs necessary, which will be separate from this particular program. But I brought some flyers that could be handed out to all the teachers. I can email via the website to teachers individually, but I thought it might be best to present it directly to the board so that we can pass this message on, because we might as well take advantage of the extra monies out there so teachers do not have to pull it out of their pocket. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today, and let you know that Hansel is here to give back with pride and to the humility that people go through to try to teach our future. And we appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the gift certificate? So if someone does a test drive and you get, what is the gift certificate for? How does that work?
It's to go on to donorschoose.org and donate to any project of your choice.
Okay.
There's one card per consumer, and they're $20 increments. I've got plenty and I can get more. So even if you're not in the market and you just want to contribute, come on by the store, say hello. We'll give you one of these gift cards. You just open it up. It has a registration number on it. You can pick whatever teacher that you want, your favorite, etc. The cards look like this. And I was on the website earlier today, and I see quite a few teachers that have almost reached some of their goals, and others that may have never even started this project. Maybe they don't know about it, or they just never came up with a project they wanted to put on that website. So I urge all teachers to do this. It's a lot of money to be given away, and we want to be part of giving it back to you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Adams, Ms. Quinn, thank you. Yeah. This brings us to reports. CSEA report. President Tammy Alfonso.
Good evening, Vice President Fong, Superintendent Kitamura, and school board members. Well, here we are, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, and we start all over again. We're very excited. I've had a long summer, and I really need to get back to work. So first, we would like to acknowledge the following employees. 7 employees that have had a chance to increase their hours. 7 new hire employees, 6 employees who've been promoted to new positions, 1 employee who has come back to the district, 2 employees that have transferred sites. We say goodbye and wish 2 employees best wishes in their future employment and a happy retirement to 1 employee. This year, 4 members of our CSEA Chapter 75 will be going to conference. Members will be attending various professional development classes and voting on 7 resolutions. We want to share that resolution number 5 being brought by our delegates from Chapter Berryessa, number 364, is sponsoring funding traditional kindergarten based on average daily attendance, which if passed requires that CSEA seek legislation that would allow districts to collect state funds based on the average daily allowance for kindergarten students regardless of when they turn age 5. Chapter 75 supports this resolution. We're looking forward to our August 12th Professional Development Day. Members have started signing up for the classes already. We look forward to sharing that information on how our day went with you shortly. We also have begun planning for our April 13th Professional Development Day. We figured, well, we have the time, we might as well do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, President Alfonso. Item D2, Santa Rosa Teachers Association report. I don't see anybody here to make a report. No report tonight. Do we have a Labor Management Collaborative report tonight?
Yes, President Fong, we do. On June 23rd through the 26th, 4 members of the CSEA leadership team, including members representing instructional technology, groundskeeping, human resources, attended the Labor Management Initiative along with one of our principals to continue our focus on how do we work as a labor management collaborative in Santa Rosa City Schools. What was interesting about this conference is 2 things. One, the focus of the conference is how labor management collaboratives can maintain a focus on equity and access and supporting the district staff in that work and supporting students, and what are the partnerships that are necessary for that work. And second, that there was a commitment by members of CSEA and management who were there to continue the work around safety and security and the decision-making process to provide recommendations on how we make that a stronger and more robust focus of our work here in Santa Rosa City Schools. And that there would be a continued invitation to our partners in SRTA to join us back at the table for that work. So it was a positive experience, and I know in a future meeting that members of CSEA and administration who were there will share their experiences, so thank you. Oh, and excuse me, one last thing I forgot. Our next Labor Management Collaborative meeting will be September 12th, and at that time we'll be sharing with you that we do have new members that are joining the partnership in CSEA and in management.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
Good evening. Carrying on with what President Alfonso talked about, the work that she has done and continues to do is to be acknowledged. One of the things that she worked really diligently on was the ACE program for CSEA, and she kindly dropped off the actual magazines for the board, which are at your table side. Santa Rosa City Schools is pictured. We have, I think, 3 pictures in this, and I'm very proud that we were able to job shadow, and I hope we can continue to have this program because I think it was very valuable. Tammy, what do you want to say?
You will notice that there is one typo with the name of a school that needs to be corrected. These photos and many more will be shared at our conference, and I've reached out to CSEA to make the said correction so that Ms. Calderon and Ms. Our Director Brennan were actually at Brook Hill School and not Luther Burbank. So that was an error that needs to be corrected.
Well, thank you for all your work. So this is going to be now presented at the state conference. Is that what I heard?
All of the other photos that were presented from all of the 10 chapters that participated will be shown at conference, yes.
Great. Good.
And so I'm going to try and get that slideshow so that I can bring it back to the board.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then the other thing I wanted to share that's at your table side is a book called The Governance Core. Michael Fullen has been a researcher and author that we've worked with quite a bit, and we continue to use his philosophy around coherence. If you look at this also, the foreword was written by Frank Pugh. And so I wanted to, he came by and shared the book with me. I wanted to then get one for each of you to share with you. So congratulations to both Davis Campbell and Michael Fullen, but also to our very own Frank Pugh. And yes, the school year's beginning already. I can't believe it.
We are going to skip to board member reports, and we're going to start down this way.
I have not a lot to report except for just the working parent summer shuffle, trying to make summer camps and work and happy kids. So that has been my full-time job plus this summer. I am also looking forward to going back to school, Tammy.
I only have a few things to share. So in June, because it's been a while since we've seen each other here, In June, at the end of June, I spoke at the Mike Hauser Academy graduation, so President Close couldn't be there, so she asked me to go, and I went, and it was a really wonderful experience. I spoke to a room full of incoming 9th graders, just a little bit about my experience with the STEM field, because I started off as a STEM major in college and really thought that's what I wanted to do, and kind of talked about how our pathways aren't always linear, and then also talked about my fiance's journey through STEM, because he's an electrical engineer at Keysight, so I talked a little bit about what he does. And so it was a really great experience. I also spoke to parents about A through G and the importance of really advocating for their children and getting to know their teachers and their counselors. So, and it was just great to be able to do that bilingually. We had translators there, which was really, really great, but it took a little bit of a coordination to get that started. So while we were getting it kind of coordinated, I was able to speak in both Spanish and English for the parents that were there, which was just a huge privilege that I have. And then a couple days later, on June 30th, I was invited to go on to KRCB, our local NPR station, and talk a little bit about Roseland and gentrification and just, you know, kind of continuing on the conversation that we've been having as a community around those issues. And then in July, I went to Via Esperanza's Club de Lectura. So they really try to promote financial literacy to families and children through art and storytelling. So I was able to go and read a book in Spanish to like 5 or 6 kids, and then we did an activity around like saving money and putting it in your piggy bank, and it was really cute to just interact with the kids that were there. And very recently, I attended the Luther Burbank Center Summer Camp Soiree. So for all of our students that participated in the summer camp, there was mariachi, there was dance, art showcasing. So it was really great to just celebrate with the families all the hard work that the students put into their weeks in the program. And finally, just a quick announcement, reminder that the Elsie Allen High School Ag Boosters are having a fundraiser later on in August 16th. So if anybody's interested, they are selling tickets now, and it should be a really fun event at a really beautiful winery. So if anybody has more questions, I'd be more than happy to direct you to the right people. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Manier. Director McCormick.
I've been doing the parent summer shuffle as well, and so that's been the main focus, so I don't really have much to report other than I'm trying to successfully transition and launch my 2 sons to 4-year universities. They've been at the junior college the last couple of years, and so I'm really, it's going to be interesting to see how the transition goes, and yeah, just excited. Fun time in our family right now.
All right. Well, in the past few meetings, I've brought up the proposed parcel tax that Santa Rosa City Schools is looking at, the 2020 ballot, and I'm bringing it up again tonight. As I stated in previous meetings, it's my intention to sort of gauge the pulse of the community and invite discussion. I've given my cell phone number out as a means for people to engage via text. And I'll do that again, 707-694-3318. I do appreciate the text that I have received. It's still kind of a 50-50 split. And the reasons people give are understanding reasons for the positions that they have. I've heard from supporters and opponents, and right now I wish I could say that I feel comfortable moving forward with this, but I think we need to have a much larger discussion. My understanding that we're going to have this on a future agenda item, and I do actually have a suggestion for staff to consider including, which would be looking at some of the state level measures that are being proposed and already moving forward to be put on the ballot. The first is the school facilities bonds put forward by the legislators. One, my understanding, will be for 2020, and the other one for 2022. And the second one is the California School Boards Association's floating a 2020 initiative seeking $11 billion in new taxes. Again, the reason for including this, I think, which would bring some value to the board members, is that you know, for our parcel tax, we're looking at both working with the community and with the community as a whole. But we're looking at both improving school facility needs and also opportunities to increase salaries for teachers and school staff. And this is something that we've had an ongoing discussion about, knowing that there are other initiatives that are being put on the ballot. You know, this will weigh on the voters when they consider voting for something as a proposal like a parcel tax. There are other local initiatives that are already moving forward to be on the ballot for 2020, and that is also something that we have to consider when we look at you know, the results of sort of the pulse of the community, polling that we're doing on the inside, but also the conversation and the discussions that we're having out there in the community. And that's all that I have, so thank you.
I don't have too much to report, but I do have just a concern. Just over the past month or so, I've just seen a lot of, well, as part of the North Bay Rapid Response Network around ICE raids and reporting ICE raids. I've seen a lot of activity and a lot of fear. And one of the concerns that I have is like the impact that all this fear and rhetoric has on children. So just something that's been looming inside of me, just with the amount of calls that I've seen come in and reports, often unsubstantiated, but just the fact that they're coming in is a reflection of the fear that exists out there. So the impact on children is something that's concerning me, and I hope it's something that dies down, but I don't see it dying down.
It's a concern. I'd like to share that I was able to attend the exhibition, the final thing of the Maker Camp at Comstock, and I wish I could have gone to all of the summer school final days presentations, but I want to give a shout out to these teachers. Julia Cooper, who is now going to be the principal of Lehman, Gretchen Warner, Matt Davis, Jose Salazar, and Jennifer Toby, who ran the Comstock Maker Camp. And it was stupendous. The curriculum those teachers put together was deep, was rigorous, was interesting and engaging. And this is what happens when, and the kids were engaged, and the kids did really deep work. They did taiko drummings, they did photography, they did research on history of Japan, they did other writing, they did listening for a change and interviewing and photography and cooking, and they did all these things with literacy in mind. And so this is about how, good example of peak moments of engagement and learning that don't we wish our kids could do all the time. But this is what happens when we change structures. We change time, we change space, and the kids are able to do this with their teachers, and the teachers had collaboration time, and I don't know how they put it all together, but they did, and they did a great job. And Gretchen Warner, I think it was Gretchen, who pulled me aside and said, I want all the teachers to know of these kids, how these kids were engaged, how hard these kids work, and how interested they were if they were given these kind of authentic projects and hands-on projects. And she's right, but of course, an issue of time and structures that we want to afford everybody. So it was really a very deep, satisfying thing. It wasn't just like camp. Maybe camp is a good thing, but I was really impressed, so thank you. Thank you to staff, admin staff for helping put that together, organizing, and how we afford it, and the teachers for stepping forward. We don't have a CSBA report, I think, yeah. All right, we need to, we're looking at the consent item agenda right now. We're gonna be pulling E9, we have a speaker on E9, and also we're going to be pulling E5. We won't pull E5. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to abstain from E5 because I have a I work for them, so I had to pull it.
Well, you have to pull it because it's a separate vote from the rest of the consent item.
It is?
Because you're going to, unless you're going to.
I'm going to pull the whole thing,
Yeah.
E5.
Pull E5.
I'm just going to abstain from E.
E5.
Yes. So we have a speaker.
Do you want to go ahead?
Should we go ahead and listen to Tammy?
Well, do you want to go ahead and vote on the rest?
Let's vote on E1 through 4 and E6 through 8. Catch this now. And we're going to wait on 9, and we're going to go 10 through 16. 1 through 4, 6 through 8, 10 through 16 is what we're going to be asking for the motion for approval.
Move to approve E1 through 4, 6 through 8, and 10 through 16.
Second.
So we have a motion by Director Medina and second by Director McCormick. Let's have a roll call vote on that.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Manieri? Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye. And let's have a motion on E5. Do I have a motion to pass E5, to approve E5?
I move
Contracts.
to approve E5.
Second.
So a motion by Director Manieri and second by Director McCormick. Roll call vote, please.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Abstain. And we have pulled E9, and we have a speaker card on E9, and that is Tammy Alfonso, President of CSEA.
Good evening once again. CSEA continues to see the district and the board acknowledge the increased job duties are being recognized and addressed. Tonight, if the board approves the increase of salaries for its qualified employees, this is just one way to retain qualified staff. This is also showing the importance the district sees in retaining all staff and their services and what they do for the students of the district. CSEA 75 members anticipate that during our upcoming job description study and salary compensation survey that we will also be acknowledged with the same consideration, and we thank you ahead of time.
Thank you. So do I have a motion for for approval of consent item E9?
Move to approve E9.
Second.
So we have a move to approve by Director Medina and a second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye. Motion passes. All the consent items passed. Brings us to F items, discussion action items. We are at F1 as an action item, and we are going to be listening to staff report to accept the Measure I and L Citizens Oversight Committee annual report.
Good evening, Vice President Fong, members of the board, Superintendent Kitamura. Tonight, we're here to present the Measure I and L Citizens Oversight Committee annual reports. To my immediate right is a familiar face to this room, Mr. Mike Beeler, who is the chair of the Measure I Committee and essentially a chair of the Measure L Committee as well. Thankfully, he moved about a year and a half ago and fell into both boundaries. So we're very thankful for that. Tonight, with these reports, I think it's important also to talk a little bit about the role of the Citizens Oversight Committee. The role is mandated under the rules of a Prop 39 bond approval and issuance, which both Measure I and L are. Each bond required a 55% vote in order to pass with the community, and one of the stipulations of passage of the bond at the 55% level is that there would be a Citizens Oversight Committee formed to do several things. One is to ensure that bond revenues are expended only for construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or replacement of school facilities. Inform the public concerning expenditure of bond funds. Review annual performance and financial audits. Inspect school facilities that receive bond funding. Review district efforts to maximize bond dollars. And report progress annually to the Board of Trustees through the annual report are the major considerations of the Citizens Oversight Committee. It should be noted that the Citizens Oversight Committee does not approve projects. That is the work of the board along with staff, nor do they approve expenditures. They merely review expenditures to see if they were in alignment with voter-approved bond language. With that, the committee meets 3 to 4 times a year, usually on a quarterly basis, to review financials for the previous period or the previous portion of that fiscal year. One of the nuances, and I should let Mike tell you about this, is that the annual report by law is for a calendar year. The audits are for a fiscal year. So there is a kind of a weird paradigm where the annual report really includes an audit for half the year that shows the well-being of the bond programs for both of us. With that, I'll pull up one report. For Measure I, which is our high school bond, $175 million of the other report is for Measure L for the $54 million authorization. I will now turn it over to Mike for a few words, what he'd like to share about the process.
Yeah, as Rick said, we met 4 times this year, and we reviewed the financial reports provided by the district, and at one of the meetings we were able to get the annual audit. And as he also stated, our report is for January 1, 2018 to December 31st, but the audit report is actually July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. Which works out okay because it takes about 6 or 7 months to get the audit from the auditor, so it kind of works out at the end of our calendar year anyway. I would say that there's still some things that we're working on to try to streamline what the committee members need to do and to make it a little bit easier on the district to provide us with the financials that might make a little more sense. And we're still struggling to fill the vacancies. I think as I looked tonight, out of the 8 seats on each committee, we have 4 members, and some of us are on both. So I think there might be a total of 6 people that are looking at it. So we could use a little bit help filling those spots. So Frank Pugh's gonna be on it now, so maybe he'll bring in some fresh blood, so to speak. And then I don't know if you guys have any specific questions, but basically I should say that, you know, the committees have found that everything we've reviewed financially is within the wording on the bond measure. So everything looks pretty good. We're all requesting like a 50% raise from 0 to 0. So maybe that'll help get more people.
I would like to touch on that. Frank Pugh has elected to join the committee as well, which is a welcome new face, and he is also doing his efforts to bring additional members in as well. Mike and I are going to work together about some Facebook posts and some other social media, along with Beth Burke, our communications coordinator. One thing we found is there oftentimes is interest in the committee, and then when they find out what it entails, they show up for a meeting maybe, or don't show up at all. So It is a huge thank you to Mike and the rest of the committee members that have been there through the majority of the 2 years or 3 years that we've been doing this. It's not a huge time commitment, but it is a commitment, and it is appreciated that they're doing this. Even though we only have about 4 on each now, Frank might make 5 and 5. We still have, 10 sets of eyes looking at both because we run joint meetings. So I know that doesn't fulfill it totally, but we are getting overlap and we are doing the meetings in tandem in order to get the most set of eyes on projects and other things going forward. And my last comment, and then Director McCormick, this is for the Citizens Oversight Committee, and on August 14th, we will be bringing back a presentation on the overall bond program and that moving forward, both from a facilities and technology standpoint. So that'll be a comprehensive report on the 14th.
It is time for questions by the board to the staff. Director McCormick.
First of all, thank you, Mike, so much for your efforts and your time and your expertise on this. And my question is, just officially for the record and for people in here tonight, people listening at home, what are the area boundaries that you have to live in? Do you have to live in certain boundaries to serve on these committees?
To be on the elementary district, which would be Measure L, you have to live within the boundaries of the elementary school district and not be a district employee. For Measure I, you have to live within the boundaries of the high school district and not be a district employee.
And one more thing, I think what complicates it a little bit is there's members at large or a senior citizen organization or taxpayers organization, so they have to fall within certain categories too. So they have to live in the area and be in one of these categories.
Director Sheffield.
So this is just a quick question on bond use in general, since this is an agenda item. Maybe it's more directed to you, Rick, but Mike, I want to thank you so much and thank all your colleagues. It's a very tough job and it's tough to fill this position. I understand and just want to thank you. Take a moment while you're here to do that. My question is on, as I said, it's just on general bond use and regarding marquees. And we've had discussion on a lot of the purpose and the use of the bond money for the marquees as safety reasons, and I think that that's a very responsible use of funds. My question is, do the marquees also include the charters?
Yeah, they will include all schools in the district. So our traditional elementary and high school, middle school, high school, and charter schools.
Great. Satisfies my question. Thank you so much.
Director Medina.
Yeah, my question is in regards to the bond administration. Just looking at the overall figures in 2018, it looks like the cost of administration just went up quite a bit compared to like 2017 in terms of percentage. I'm just wondering what types of projects kind of what would account for that huge increase in administrative costs?
One of the things on there is, depending on how positions are allocated, we do have a couple of positions that are funded by the bond because they perform bond duties, such as a director of facilities, which is, I think he's about 99.7% all bond related. A couple of other positions, including some of my time that's dedicated to bond activities, is paid through this. Our director of technology, who was primarily working on bond projects, has gone through that, and some other management folks that contribute to the administrative costs on that. For instance, the director of technology, his percentage is going down as we move through this. But for right now, the director of facilities and some other small percentages will stay with the bond because their job is dependent on bond projects.
So just to clarify, so these are possibly positions that didn't necessarily exist before that that now exists?
Correct.
And should we anticipate it at this point kind of staying the same as it was in 2018, or?
It'll be similar to that, unless we have to bring in other management to conduct projects, not necessarily employee, but even firms to do management of projects with bond proceeds moving forward.
And if I can add, I think this is one of the conversations we had with legal counsel early on, and the conversation was, should you hire outside firm, let's say, to manage this, or use inside employees, existing employees, and the thought was it could be done more economically as a district provided service, let's say, instead of hiring somebody on the outside. I hope that's accurate.
Yeah. Because to that point, if we had construction management firms on every project, that would be another 6 to 11% of costs added to a project, where the majority of our projects are internally managed at, I'll say, a flat rate for a yearly salary.
Any other questions from the board?
Just another thank you, Mike, for all of your work. It's really amazing to see everything that's happening all throughout the district to get our kids getting ready to go back to school in really high quality, updated facilities. So grateful to you and all of your committee members for your work, and I will be sure to spread the word to make sure you get some help and support.
That'd be great. I think you guys still need about $1 billion more to get everything done. That could be a problem. So.
We'll double the pay, 0%.
Double the pay.
% of $0.
Yeah.
I just want to say again, thank you that we already said that, and to the entire committee of 6, because we're talking about public dollars, and having a citizens oversight committee to say, yes, we are on track, no malfeasance, we're doing the right thing is what we need and what the public needs. So thank you for taking that role as a citizen. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
This is an action item. Let's see. So the motion would be to accept the measure I. Do we need to do measure L, or we did it together, right? Okay. So the motion is to accept the measure I and L Citizens Oversight Committee.
I move to accept the report on measure I and L.
I second.
So that motion was made by Director De La Cruz and seconded by Director Manieri. Roll call vote, please.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye. Thank you. This brings us to item F2, Child Nutrition Services, Operations Update.
Hold on. Good evening, Vice President Fong, Superintendent Kimura, members of the board. Tonight we are here to give an update on child nutrition services. As you are all aware, Mr. Ed Burke is our new Director of Child Nutrition Services, and I will say this, he came in running, and it's been nice to see. He entered the department, take input and feedback from the parties in the department, as well as some school site feedback, in order to start that process of rebuilding the Child Nutrition Services program to serve and to the benefit of all of our children in this district. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Burke for his presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. I am super excited. And when I start these presentations, I like to start from a place of gratitude and appreciation. So first off, I want to say thank you for having me. It's an honor and privilege to serve the students of Santa Rosa City Schools, and I'm looking forward to building an amazing program in conjunction with our community. I'd also like to take a moment to state my appreciation for the hard work of the CNS staff, in particular Devin Tweeg, our interim director for this past school year, Denise Scott, our supervisor of the Central Kitchen, Devin and Denise have really done a terrific job throughout this past school year. They provided a tremendous amount of leadership for our team. They included analytics and decision-making processes, and something that is very near and dear to my heart, they were available and willing to give me data and information prior to my start date. So day one, we had some really great conversations, to which I say thank you to Devin. Oh, perfect, thank you very much. So I'd like to start off by pointing out on our slides,
There we go.
perfect. So on our slides, the blue section indicates that this is a goal for our department. So one of our goals is financial management, and one of the things that we tell our team, this isn't a number, this is a product that nourishes our students. So if we manage our processes well, we can have amazing salad bars, for example. So on our food costs from last year, Devin did an absolutely fantastic job of bringing down our food costs to a more sustainable level. And so he was able to do that by focusing on inventory control, commodity entitlement usage, which is amazing, and just more analytics and thought on processes on how to make good menus for our schools.
Just, could I have you speak more directly into the mic so it's a little louder, please?
Oh, certainly. And thank you for clarifying that I need to be more clear. I am a little bit nervous, so I might move around a bit, but I will speak more directly in the mic. Thank you. So I have to say I am thoroughly impressed with how quickly, as you can see, these processes and controls into food costs went into work. In fact, towards the end of our year, we have settled right into our target zone for food cost, which indicates that we have some really thoughtful and wonderful conversations about what works in our schools and what doesn't in a more sustainable manner. So this is, this is fantastic. One of our goals is to reduce waste. We want to reduce the single-use plastics. We want to reduce post-consumer food waste, pre-consumer food waste, and to provide as much opportunities as possible to divert any post-consumer waste. So another key area of our focus is menu development. In any restaurant in town, you think, the first thing you ask is, what's the food like? So this is a sample product that we made in Calistoga Junior Senior High School. It's a pollo con salsa de guajillo. This was entirely driven by our staff. They said, Ed, we feel like this would be a really good hit with our kiddos. How do we make this work? We went through a process together, and the net result was a beautiful, beautiful lunch. Everyone had what I like to call the salsa smile. So they had sauce all over their mouths, which I took to mean that they thoroughly enjoyed themselves. And one of the things that we have to do to get there is to focus on teamwork. So in Calistoga, we had that amazing teamwork. Here in Santa Rosa, we started very early. This is a taste testing that we had on some bread products that we were evaluating. We brought in all of our team members and we said, please everyone taste this, and before I voice my opinion, please share with me yours, which was a fantastic experience. One of the items I did not particularly enjoy turned out to be a crowd favorite. So I'm thrilled that we had a disagreement about what is a good muffin, Ed, and why are you on the wrong side of this? And so that really set a tone. We can speak out about things that we want, things that we feel would be in better service to students, and we can have some discussions about that. So to that end, we're developing a menu development group within our department of several folks with diverse backgrounds, experiences, and opportunities for them to express what is working and what's not working. What might work for one facet of our department may not be really serving our students the best way. And so by bringing this group together, our intention is to have a more robust program. This also gives us an opportunity to create a K-12 pathway to introducing new foods. So for example, we have a banh mi at our secondary sites. Pickled vegetables might be a little bit out there. So if we introduce curtido with our pupusas in elementaries, we're now introducing a familiarity. So when students are matriculating out and getting more sophisticated foods in secondaries, there is an opportunity for them to be more familiar with those foods and accept them more readily, which is going to be fantastic. It also provides a wonderful opportunity for us to disagree on things and then commit to a single vision and move forward. One of our biggest goals is to make our own food as much as possible. We have an incredible central kitchen. We have the means by which to prepare a tremendous amount of products that reflect and represent our community, that will enable us to control our food costs that much more, and give us more control over products, particularly as the nutrient requirements moving forward are going to become, hopefully, more restricted. So this will be a very positive experience for us. One of the key things that we're going to be implementing, and is a best practice, is taste testings. I use this picture because I tell the story to anyone who will listen. In terms of introducing fruits and vegetables, hummus is kind of amazing. It's a dip. How do you eat hummus with other vegetables? Gotcha. So this was a taste testing that we conducted in Calistoga Elementary School. Before the taste testing, most folks just deferred on the hummus. We had questions, is that baby food? I don't really like it. I don't know what it is. So we brought in volunteers to help us serve. We had a tremendous amount of engagement. One of the key facets of this is if students like you, they're more likely to try your food. So engagement with students from our cafeteria staff is going to be critically important. And I have to say, I've been thrilled to report that all of the site staff that we've worked with have had great relationships with students, and we're looking to build on those with taste testings as well. Professional development is near and dear to my heart. This is going to be the key to success, much more than any kind of impressive menu items. I use this picture because we had a wonderful opportunity to discuss knife skills. Not something that you might associate with school food, but we had a great conversation about how to dice onions and how that empowered our staff to make better choices with our menu items. So we're going to be training all of our staff on culinary training. This creates a pathway for promotions and opportunities within the organization. It also is very empowering, as we mentioned prior to. We're also going to be doing some work on what is tasting, how to describe a food, and how can we get into constructive criticism. I made some hummus for a meeting, and I asked each of my team members in the central kitchen, try this hummus and tell me what you think. Some said, it's fine. I was like, okay, it's probably not. And some said, like, this is great, I love it. One team member said, this tastes like baby food, and it's kind of bland. And I was like, fantastic. Does this need an acid to brighten? Do we need to add a little more assertive flavor? And so this training is going to include the means by which to describe these products in a way that's more standardized for all of us to appreciate. A big push is going to be telling our community exactly who we are and what we're doing. So we need to go where folks are, that's Facebook, Peach Jar, Instagram, and share these stories about who we are and what we do. And to which I say thank you to Beth Burke for being a tremendous partner in this regard. And in every meeting that we have, we share these messages with our partners. So if we're having a conversation with Boys and Girls Club, we're bringing up every one of our priorities as an opportunity to amplify that message to folks that might otherwise not have heard it. A big push this year is going to be our applications for free and reduced price meals. We would like a 95% response rate on applications from the entire district. This information is going to be confidential. It is not shared with anyone. It is entirely for us and CDE, and that typically goes no further. The applications are available online. There are paper applications at your child's school. And more importantly, this year, you can elect to not apply if you feel like this is not a good fit. That still qualifies as a response, and that will enable us to follow up in September and October to ensure that, hey, we've heard from you. Is there a barrier to signing up for free and reduced price meals? Are we worried about something? We can talk about your unique situation. So one of those responses earlier in the year would be tremendously helpful. We are hiring. So we have some fantastic flyers and handouts. We want to really let people know that we are hiring folks that want better food at schools. If you are interested in making a better future, you like this work hours, please contact us because we are hiring people who are motivated and passionate about serving great food to kids. One of the things that we are focusing on is our partners and champions. We need help. So our partners are folks who are organizations or groups that can help us with our strategic goals, or perhaps individuals who have the time and means to do so. Our champions is a little less high stakes. So our champion is anyone who is at a school site who can participate and contribute to the success of our food service program. So if you are a parent and you say, hey, what was on the salad bar today? That's champion work. We love it. So one of our favorite partners is California Food for California Kids. They have a program called California Thursdays. This is some of the most innovative network of schools with regards to school food in the state. If you're hearing amazing things in school food, they're probably part of this network, and we have expressed an interest in joining as well. We're meeting most of these requirements already, and the ones that we are not meeting are very tenable and would not add to any of our expenses. So we are doing an open call to action. We're looking for partners. We're interested in working with folks that can help us accomplish our goals. We want to help create bridges, as this image portrays, to better serve our schools. When we have conversations with partners who are engaging with families in a way that food services otherwise might not, we find some fantastic opportunities to better support students and drive better growth in schools. So school site champions, really, we're just looking for anyone who is interested in advocating for their schools, providing us with feedback. Hey Ed, we love the hummus, we did not like the salad, let's talk. We also have some advocacy tools available to parents, so we're on the same page about how to communicate with us so that we can more effectively move forward with our goals. And last but not least, arguably the most important thing, we need feedback. How was your lunch today? How did things go at school? Was there a challenge at your school site? Share your experiences with us, please. We're eager to understand the needs of parents, community members, the community at large, and most importantly, students. And your feedback helps us grow. And if that feedback is something within the framework that we have with regards to our advocacy toolkit, all the better, because we can move forward that much faster. So that said, I like to begin and end with a thank you. So thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to present. And I'd like to open the floor to questions or comments.
Thank you. Board members have questions for staff? Director McCormick, Director Sheffield. I can't tell if your finger is like twitching or what. Director Manieri, everybody. Okay.
All right. I don't know why you were nervous about your presentation. It was excellent.
Let me remind staff.
Great presentation.
It's all questions at this point.
I know, I'm gonna ask one. Okay. My question is, have you reached out to Santa Rosa JC's culinary program? Because I think there might be, for people looking for jobs coming out of that certification program, and maybe some champions and some porters, just an idea.
I love that suggestion. We have reached out to SRJC and their culinary program. I have to say, I haven't had the pleasure of visiting their facilities, but I understand they are absolutely top-notch. One of our employees is a graduate from there, and so she reached out directly to some faculty members that she felt would be good partners, as well as the Career Center at SRJC as well. But yeah, I love that idea, and we are looking forward to building partnerships with our local education agencies. Thank you.
And also, I think the nutrition department as well. I think there could be some opportunity for some shadowing, some mentorship, some projects, and just some people that could get involved in this and see how nutrition affects our community on a daily basis. So
absolutely.
I'm excited to see all of the new changes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Director Sheffield.
Thank you for the presentation. So first question I have is has to do with the free and reduced lunch applications, and you'd mentioned the goal of reaching 95%. What are the particular efforts or steps? What do you propose implementing to get that? I think it's a great goal. I just wondering what steps are being taken to get us there.
Absolutely, I love that question. So as of right now, we have about 3,000 students that we've had a response from. That's fantastic. We are doing tons of posts with social media, our website. We're also reaching out to school sites directly to let them know At some point, we will have an incentive at your school. We're still working through what that incentive would be. We are unfortunately restricted from requiring folks to respond, which is for the best. So we want to create a strong incentive. Hey, if your school reaches this point, we have partners that are willing to donate in-kind donations. There's an opportunity for us to have a particular menu item that day, something that we can do to drive an incentive. We are also going to be joining the Wednesday night markets to talk with parents. I think that if we had one response at one of these events, that's a win. And so that's the emphasis for our team. Really, it's coming down to addressing some individual needs as well. There are folks that have concerns, will this information be shared with certain agencies or certain groups? And the answer to that is no. We also intend to do some follow-up phone calls because every year it feels like at the end of the year there's someone who could have applied earlier and had a much better outcome. We definitely want to have a conversation. Hi, please reach out to us as soon as possible. So we believe that September, October will be the best time to do so. So it's early in the school year. We have carryover from the previous school year so that we're not incurring charges too soon. The other facet of that is when folks are incurring charges, we want to communicate very clearly to them what is happening. Your child does not qualify for free meals, even though you previously had, so please contact us so we can discuss your situation. That said, there are some best practices that we will be implementing, and those are just the beginning of the school year. As time goes on, we will ratchet up our efforts.
I'm wondering, you know, as part of this process, is there any type of, I'm trying to think of a way to simplify it, or a pre-screening question where it can just be, you know, put you in the ballpark. Is this something that you would qualify for or not? That way you're able to reach even more people. Just, I don't know, basic question, yes, no answer, you know, a few of those.
Absolutely. One of the required things that we have to send home to parents is the income eligibility guidelines. They can be a little bit tough to read, but we can provide some information available. I'd like to explore that further. I think that's a fantastic idea. Thank you.
The second question or comments I have regarding waste and applaud your interest in waste reduction, particularly around plastics. Both President Close and I are part of ongoing effort to address plastic use in the community here. We're both representing the board, representing the district on this, and there will be more to come, and we're looking, probably coming to you for some input, and definitely value your interest on this as well.
Thank you.
Director Manieri.
My turn. Thank you for that presentation. My questions, I have a few. The first one is, what is the best way that someone can provide feedback to your team?
Fantastic. So my personal favorite is please encourage your student to have a conversation with our site staff. That's the most direct way. They'll pick up the phone and they'll let me know immediately. Ed, I just heard from this student and they said, and that's super helpful. We also would encourage folks to give a call to our district office. Our friend Kylie will be the first person to answer. She is a parent herself. She can walk you through what was going on, what's happening with your school, and ask these critical questions. Lastly, we have a survey posted on our website that we would encourage folks to give us more general or specific situations, and we intend to do follow-ups to those. So one of the pieces that we would ask is please let us know who you are so that we can follow up and check in with you. Hey, have your needs been met since the last time we spoke? Which can be difficult with an anonymous survey, but we also understand anonymity is important as well. Thank you.
And just to kind of follow up with that, if a parent, for example, doesn't speak English, can they call the district office and still take this website on the survey on the district website?
That's a fantastic question. If that is not the case, we will take the efforts to make it more available to parents. And I would also encourage folks, if there is an opportunity to have a conversation with our team, we also have team members, including myself, who speak Spanish, and we'd be happy to address that. We also are available via email, and there is a translation feature in our Gmail, which is enormously helpful with communicating with folks. Thank you.
And then my last question, I was really interested in the graph that showed the decrease in the cost of food. And my question is if that had any effect on the quality of the food.
No, in fact, I would say the opposite is true. We were buying more food than was necessary at the beginning of the school year. And so that product then sits on a shelf, it does not improve. So there was an opportunity for us to buy what we needed to buy, understand like, hey, you know what, this product is not working, let's make a move. And that was ultimately what happened there, which is a very positive move for our department and for the students of Santa Rosa City Schools.
Director De La Cruz.
Thank you so much for your work and welcome. I have a couple of questions around the costs per student, and I wondered if those costs are the same at each school or if there are differences in cost depending on the school.
Fantastic question. So what I've done to date is look at the cost overall. So we look at meal equivalents across the entire district to find what an average is, and that gives us a goal. That might be more specific to say, sorry, thank you. That might be more specific to a school. So for example, our secondary schools will be offering a slightly different menu or a radically different one from our elementaries. And so we will be drilling down into site-specific information as that information becomes available to us through the school year so that we can make adjustments. Like, hey, I think we're ordering a little bit too much, let's dial it back. Or please order more because our counts are going up, which would be absolutely amazing. Thank you.
In line with that question, I know we have one school in particular that has a little bit of controversy around their private chef and their different menu than the rest of the schools in the district, and I wonder if you are thinking about kind of those equity issues and how either to provide more flexibility across all schools to do something similar, or how to ensure equity across all schools.
Absolutely. At the core of this is we want to build a better program that is sustainable and accessible to all students. And so the sustainability piece is something that we are taking a really good look at. Thank you.
And then I have a couple more questions. We live in an ag community. We live in a community where food is grown by people whose kids are in our schools, and I wonder if there's a way, or if you're thinking about local partnerships between our ag community, farm workers, kids, and how we can build some farm-to-table programs, and wonder if those are already in process at all?
Absolutely. It's a little bit early to comment on partnerships, but we are very keen on exploring any and all opportunities to expand our farm-to-school efforts, to let folks know, hey, this came from this farmer. The coalition, the Community Alliance of Family Farmers, CAF, is doing tremendous work in farm to school, and we are borrowing some of their templates so that we can share out what our best practices are. Hey guys, this came from this farmer. Here's a really cool presentation. Here's a really great poster, and potentially some trading cards, which apparently is a hot button thing in some schools that have them. And so there is an excitement. This was grown down the street, and that's amazing where possible. And there are some challenges with that. However, I think those are very positive ones to undergo. And we've actually started reaching out to farmers at the local farmers market, and we've had some really great discussions from there. But as I said, I think we need to build partnerships with folks that can help us connect to a much wider audience, because the farmers market is a great place to meet the folks that are at the farmers market, and we need to reach a much wider circle of folks. Thank you.
Do you have a percentage or know how much of what we're eating is local and how much comes from local farmers?
At present, I don't. However, we recently transitioned our produce company, so that's one of the reasons why we're having a hard time drilling down. However, we have a partnership with a local agency that can give us that information more readily, and so we should be able to report that out in our next report.
Cool. I think that would be a really neat way for us to think about lowering our emissions as a district and really being able to take advantage of the beautiful place that we live in and all the amazing people who feed us every day. And then my last question is a little self-interested. I have a kid who is gluten-free and dairy sensitive and all kinds of other fun things. And one of the things that can be a little bit tough sometimes with the menu is not knowing whether or not something is completely gluten-free, or so is there a way to provide more options for parents who have kids who are allergic to everything?
I believe so. There are some guidances from the state and the USDA about how those procedures will take place. But I think at the first step is to communicate what is appropriate and what is not. So we can definitely evaluate that. I think if it's beyond a single allergen, we would also encourage you to come visit us, visit your local school, so that it's not the person in the window, but rather like my friend Ed, who's gonna help me make some good choices. We've had a long history of working with parents to make them and their students feel more comfortable with regards to their allergies, because we understand that can be terrifying, especially if we don't know the parties involved. So we definitely want to communicate that information and provide a greater level of relationship with our folks in the cafeteria to make your students feel safe.
So I think just a couple of suggestions around that, like, you know, a lot of restaurants will have like the V next to the vegan options, or GF with a circle around them next to the gluten-free options, and giving some more transparency into what kids are eating, I think would also increase the amount of kids who would be happy to be eating at school. Mine loves to be able to eat at school when he can, and that would be sweet. And then just with regard to kind of these equity issues around each school and ensuring that they have the same, I would love to make a request for that information to come back to us, to just be sure that we're being able to track some of these issues across schools. Some of the feedback that I've gotten is that depending on the school that you're at, you get a very different kind of feel in the cafeteria with school lunch, and I think it's really important for us not to create kind of like two tracks, the kids who get free lunch and the kids who get to bring their own, and having that be something that the kids who have the privilege of bringing their own lunches still want to eat in the cafeteria, because the food is awesome. So I remember what it felt like to be one of those kids who had to walk around with like the bright red ticket and hand it to the lady and was like, oh yeah, you're the poor kid punch, and then, you know, the rest of the kids didn't have to do that. So I think the ways in which we can really facilitate all kids feeling comfortable eating in the cafeteria and making sure that we have an eye towards those equity issues to make sure that it's something that all kids do want to do, not just because it's free. Anyway, I'm really grateful for your work and glad that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Medina.
Yeah, I have a few questions. I think, first, I think I'm trying to just generally picture the process where it's at versus where I think you want to go. And can you just initially briefly guide me right now, kind of what's the process in terms of like the stuff come in prepackaged and shipped out to the different schools from some central kitchen, or is there stuff that gets prepared at the central kitchen and that gets distributed? And yeah, let's start off with that.
Great question. So we do have, because we have a shortage of staff, that limits to some extent what we can prepare ourselves, which is one of the reasons why we are very keen to hire very passionate folks so that we can get that control back and we can start implementing the things that we need to do right away. So with that in mind, the prepackaged items don't require a lot of staff to prepare things, which means that's more feasible because we don't have that team member. So at present, we do have a number of items that we prepare ourselves. Most of them are sauce driven. Today I had a lovely lunch, for example. It was a chicken and cheese taco that we prepared ourselves using commodity food. It was amazing. That was kind of a difficult day. I actually got on the line and worked for about an hour and a half because we were shorthanded. So with that in mind, we do have packaged foods that we send out to schools. We have products that we make ourselves. Our elementary schools, for example, are fed through our central kitchen, so they'll have individually wrapped items. Our secondary sites have more equipment, and so they're able to produce products at their school sites, and that creates an opportunity for us to provide more products at a school site. Ideally, we have a mission and vision to expand our capabilities
so that we can step away from those prepackaged products and make more stuff for ourselves, because I think that is ultimately a much better outcome for kiddos.
The staffing that you talk about how many positions are open, and maybe what percentage of that is it in terms of what's needed to kind of fulfill this larger vision of what you'd like to do?
Fantastic. As of right now, we need at least 2 cook bakers. We need several food worker 2s. We have active postings, I want to say more than 10. So we are very much in need of that. In terms of our capacity for preparing food from scratch, I think the cook baker position is definitely an area of focus for us, because our cook bakers are the folks who are going to be in our central kitchen preparing things from scratch, and then we'll be utilizing our facilities to send them out to schools.
And are you getting applicants, or I'm wondering if wages are an issue in relation to receiving applicants for the positions?
Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent, can you want to speak to that?
So much like other industries, not only in the educational sector, but in the private sector, we continue to compete with a very robust job market, and we're partnering with CSEA to look at ensuring that we're meeting minimum wage qualifications as those requirements go forward into 2020 to meet the $15 an hour. And also to one of Ed's points earlier, and I think actually to Director McCormick's, looking to partner with our local JC groups for nutrition and food services, as well as the private sector of culinary academies, where we can tap into people who have that passion, who might be entry level, but actually see food service in a school as a career and not as a job. And so we know that we still have work to do in that area for compensation as well as training and support.
Around to waste, I know we talked about like waste in terms of like plastic, but I remember oftentimes when I'd be like around school lunch programs, I'd see a lot of like food wasted after lunch, a lot of food that wasn't used, and people, you know, they couldn't give it away or anything. Do you track that somehow, and is there some sort of monitoring to help reduce that waste?
Fantastic question. So at present, we don't have a formal system. We do use anecdotal data from our custodians. These are the folks who are lifting those bags and letting us know, like, this was a heavy day, like, let's make some changes. We have a partnership with some folks right now in our summer program that I think could be a prototype relationship that we could explore. We also want to look at what our offerings are and are they meeting the needs of our students. One of my favorite stories is from a kindergartner who holds up a very small apple and said, this needs to be cut and then I'll eat it. And I was like, okay, so that's a move that we can make that will make that product more accessible. So our first step is menu planning. Our follow-up steps would be partner with folks for waste diversion within the constraints of our program needs and our health department requirements, because there's work to be done and we're looking for partners to help us do that.
Then, you know, Director De La Cruz brought up the inequity in terms of like food programs, and I think the French American program was something that, you know, brought up controversy before, but at the same time I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm wondering, first off, what's the status of that program, because I think it was suspended. Well, first I'll start off with that question, and then I'll...
Certainly. So at present, we do not have the staffing that we need to sustain that program, so the suspension is continuing for the foreseeable future.
Until what? I'm sorry?
Until the foreseeable future. We don't have the staff to even be in a place to meet those fulfillments or meet those requirements that we'd be committing to. So we want to reevaluate once we have a more appropriate staffing available to us.
And I'm curious, is that, is there communication with the parents and about where the status of that program is?
So I'm going to jump in here. I actually had a meeting with Principal Anderson this morning to talk about the program, the food program at the French Charter. I was pleasantly surprised to hear that we're not talking about the program that I actually first came to the district and knew it to be. And so what I think we need to do at this point is to go back, district staff, we need to talk about this and see where everybody is, because again, for me, this was a great learning this morning about the difference in the kind of food program that the French Charter would like to provide rather than what I knew in the past. And that what I heard today would be, I think, very doable for all the schools. But we need to flesh that out. We need to work together to flesh that out a little bit more. Like I said, very different than what I had heard or had experienced in the past. The thing that it will not change is that all students will have access. So whatever it is that's determined, everybody gets that. So that part is for sure. So we're going to come back to that once staff and I have a discussion around with site, and Principal Anderson is in very direct communication with the parents about what the desires are with the charter states and those things. So you'll be hearing more about this, and not so much just as a French American charter school, but overall school food improvement and tying in our local products and reducing waste and not using plastic anymore.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of like the next question in terms of like how I see kind of like your goals projecting. Is it kind of like to have something similar throughout all the schools? And I mean, it kind of sounds like that's kind of the goal. But the other question that I had, which takes me back to my youth, is I didn't hear so much exactly about how the youth are engaged in terms of like the taste testing or, you know, how to feedback. It seemed, well, at least the way that I heard it, more focused on like adults. I'm wondering how specifically are you engaging youth, whether it be in middle schools, high schools, and if in elementaries at all? I'm
going to interject here again too, since Director Burke is a little bit on the newer side. We're developing an entire youth crew that's going to be our feedback in different areas, and so this would be an absolutely wonderful use too of the youth crew about their feedback about food. And I have in mind a particular group, but they can then go out and spread to other groups about getting feedback from other school sites. I think the kids are the absolute decider of what food they're going to eat and not going to eat, and so they definitely have to have a say.
I would just add, one of my favorite memories in high school was being on the food committee and getting to taste all the food before it came out to everybody. So yeah, getting students involved, create good memories. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
He's volunteering to be on the committee again.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
So I'd like to point out a couple of other things too. I think the conversation tonight with Director Burke here in the infancy of his tenure in Santa Rosa is showing the ambitiousness that he brought, and one of the reasons why that we were very excited to have him. Another thing that was mentioned tonight that, or even approved tonight, was a new software program in the consent items for child nutrition services. And I think that's important to mention in this conversation, because I think it's going to tie together a lot of these pieces that are being discussed in different areas. One of it is real-time analytics, and so we're really taking a system that we had and we're upgrading it with the goal of providing better service, including menu development, including point-of-sale services, including usage reports and inventory reports that show which foods are being used and which foods aren't being used, and to order appropriately. So we're doing that in an effort to create an equitable situation throughout the district. And we've heard some questions about the French American Charter, and one of the discussions I had with Director Burke early on was we need to look at this program, and he brought up immediately, well, if we can do this there, we can do this everywhere, right? And so I think that's really key to point out, that we want to, whatever path we go down with our food services program, is we want to provide something better to students. I think the taste testing, Director Medina, will be student focused, because they're the ones that are going to tell us if it's good or not by the amount of waste we have at the end of a lunch period. The parents aren't going to. having other methods to measure and analyze our food usages is important, and also being able to tell where they're from, and being able to produce reports that are accurate, that show these things transpiring in the department are what's going to lead to the success. That being said, with some of these new programs and services, we'll be actually able to reduce costs, because instead of buying 1,000 of these because we think we'll use them, we're only going to buy 447 for the next 2 weeks, and we might have a few left over. But it won't be a guessing game, and that's really what we're taking out of this, is the guessing game portion of CNS, by providing something that students actually want to eat. And that was his charge when we spoke early on. And how can we make this better? Director Burke showed the progress that Interim Director Twig did throughout the year to reduce food costs. And I can say from the discussions I've heard and the feedback I've heard, that team is working harmoniously now, which hasn't always been the case. And so we're seeing some great results initially in the summer after 2 months, and I expect this to continue on, and I know it will, where we'll be giving reports about how well the food is liked and how much we're consuming now in comparison to before, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Director De La Cruz?
I was just gonna have, Rick, I really love the way you talked about kind of the French schools being the vision, because one of the things that I really appreciate about that program and what it was trying to do was have food be culturally relevant to students. And I think that's such an amazing goal to have in our international world right now. And the way in which I've seen kind of school food do that, I know when it's Tamale Day at Parker Terrace, like every kid is eating school lunch. And you know, I think it's that vision that really is about relevancy and being able to recognize what it is that you're eating. My husband to this day talks about, like, when he first came to this country and they sold pizza at school, he was like, guacala. And then, you know, that beans were sweet and had like hot dogs in them, he was freaking out. You know, this poor Mexican kid shows up and is like, what are these beans? So, you know, to the extent that we can really figure out how to tap into kids and their tastes, and then really recognize, you know, how important it is for us to be able to serve them who they are, where they come from, what's familiar and delicious. And so to that end, I'm really grateful for that articulation of the goal and recognizing that that's something that we can provide to all schools. So good luck.
Director Medina?
Since we're on the topic, and there's been some nightmare scenarios throughout the country lately, I'm curious as to how we deal with maybe students whose maybe lunches haven't been paid over time. I mean, I would hope that we don't ever let any kid go without eating, but is that a big issue that we have? And if so, how are we dealing with that?
Great question. So for those who may be not aware, there are a lot of reports of students whose meals are being taken away, a practice that is colloquially referred to as lunchroom shaming. And I want to start by saying that it has not been a practice of our department in the past, and it will not be a practice in the future. Our key feature there is communication amongst adults. You're going to hear from us much more frequently. And I'm hoping that will help drive some of this application processing conversation as well. Hey, what happened? Is everything okay? I feel like we haven't talked in a while, and we're not seeing a lot of movement on payments. So that, to my mind, speaks to us needing to have more further conversations. That's a phone call, to text message, an email. Sometimes we just forget. Sometimes we have an idea of, hey, I'll just pay at the end of the year in one check because that's easier. And sometimes there's an additional unique circumstance that we need to talk amongst ourselves. So to start, I think that Santa Rosa City Schools in particular goes to enormous efforts to engage our students at school, and an experience such as a lunchroom shaming would negate and probably harm that process tremendously. So our entire charge policy is very much driven towards, hey, we need to talk adult to adult, and that way we can have a conversation. That said, we will always feed a student when they come through our line, and we will always follow up with their parents to let them know, like, hey, this If we don't get a payment, this does adversely impact us. Let's talk about what we can do, and then explore other options that don't involve that student.
And then the other question was, as we reduce the cost per meal in terms of production, are we at all passing these savings along, or what is the process in determining what the cost of meal is for those that don't get like free lunch?
Fantastic question. So we look at this from the lens of sustainability. My first impression is, have we really captured all of the free and reduced price meal information that we can? Has everyone who could qualify for free or reduced price meals signed up to do so? There are some opportunities where we could go even further, where if we have enough people sign up for free and reduced price meals and enroll in programs like CalFresh or Medicaid and qualify in those programs, there are some opportunities that we can pursue where we would charge no students at school because we're now eligible for programs that were currently not available to us. So our push for applications has some very significant impact upon our students and the manner in which we serve them. That said, we are somewhat far away from our goals of getting to those ends. However, I believe with the support of our community, with this messaging that we're doing, and really just having conversations, have you applied for free meals yet? That would be enormously helpful to get us to a point where we don't charge any students at all, and we have a sustainable model within our program.
And I don't know if I missed it, but I know the goal is to get to 95%, but where have we been? What percentage have we been at?
So right now we have about 3,000 students that have applied for free and reduced price meals, either directly because they're in part of a program like Migrant Ed, CalFresh, or Medicaid, and we love that. We've also gotten quite a bit of applications from our online portal, which is enormously helpful for us. So as of present, we have about 3,000 students that have had responses so far, and we are very keen to see much, much more before the start of the year on August 14th.
We have a percentage, Rick, do you recall what it is, our percentage of free and reduced? I want to say 48, 49, no, 60, I don't know. It's not that we're gonna get a 95% free and reduced lunch rate, we're gonna get a 95% complete the application. I will say that this is a very extremely important thing for each of our site principals as well, because it triggers so many funding. And so they are very persistent in making sure our families fill out the free and reduced lunch application. And I'll get back to you on my update about our actual percentage because I can't remember off the top of my head.
I just want to add or kind of inquire more of a question. I mean, I know that healthcare applications usually take place towards, the beginning of the fall semester at the end of the year in terms of Covered California and all that. And so there's a lot of activity during that time. And I'm wondering if we have any partnerships or relationships with other groups that during that process of applying for those benefits that maybe they could also be applying for the free and reduced lunch, or that should be an option that they have in case they haven't done it directly with us, because I know oftentimes they're dealing with income and having those conversations during that time.
The paper application was going out with every enrollment packet before. So when you enrolled, then you enrolled in free and reduced lunch. We've now gone to an online registration. I don't know if it is a hook or a link to an online form, so they can answer that. We have to have everything in by which date, our CBEDS date or our January date for free and reduced lunch?
So ideally, we would get it before school year starts. That way you do not receive any charges whatsoever. If you have eligibility from the prior year, you have a carryover period of the first 30 school days, which was to prepare a new report. So our messaging for parents and partners is the sooner the better, please. Because the last thing we want to do is incur charges that we could have avoided by just having an earlier opportunity to represent ourselves.
So that time crunch may be deter partnering with a lot of groups, but with Back to School Night, our enrollment process, and principals have come up with ways where, although it's all confidential, they have magical ways of knowing who has completed the application and who has not, so that we're ensuring that we're getting as many processed as possible. So, but good idea. We will look into any kind of partnerships that can be timely and confidential.
I think it's important to also mention that one of the problems with free and reduced applications since the beginning of free and reduced applications as I know them is the fact that there is a stigma around them, and that a lot of parents are reluctant to disclose their income levels, let alone some of the other things that parents are worried about now in our communities, which has always been a hurdle, if you will, going back to the early 2000s. I can remember us doing a big push for free and reduced applications. At that time, it was just for the E-rate program that was funded through free and reduced lunch percentage. And as Superintendent Kitamura mentioned, now our unduplicated pupil count, which contributes to our supplemental and concentration funds in the elementary district, is tied to that as well. That may be the only qualifier for a student under the unduplicated level, which results in additional funding to us. So it's important that not only do we have ways for parents to submit the form, but we are also communicating why it's important. One, it's important so their child gets a nutritious lunch, and two, because it helps the school district as a whole as well. And we have to help them get away from that stigma that something bad can happen to them by providing this information. And so, you know, the goal is to get as many as we can. Certainly we'd love to have 95% of all students do it, just to show that we are accounting for dollars in every way possible to provide a better quality education. And that's something that not only we as a district, but many districts struggle with, that we're continually looking for ways to improve.
Rick, it was, you know, that stigma that you just discussed, that is the reason why I brought up maybe some way of having or formulating like a pre-screening question. Is your income between this and this question? You know, and if it falls in there, you know, within that range, you know, it can be a broad range, who knows, then, you know, see section 2 or something like that. So it again, you're able to capture a large audience in a, you know, in a split second. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody can make that determination if their income, their household income per child, whatever is between, you know, this range.
Right, I mean, even calling it something besides the free and reduced lunch program, like maybe it's just the school lunch program. You know, food at school, yummy good stuff that everybody eats. In some way of just kind of normalizing filling out an application to make sure you get to eat with your friends.
Director Manieri.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to bring up the stigma and thinking about the partnerships that Director Medina brought up as well. I think there's just a lot of education that has to happen. I mean, what we're talking about here is really like a culture shift around free and reduced lunch and the lunchroom shaming. I mean, it's a huge change that needs to happen for sure, because I was just sharing with Director De La Cruz that I was always that kid with the bill, you know, and I actually in elementary school formed like a little coalition of friends. Like we would share tickets if one another didn't have one, so we didn't have to be shamed. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about that, I mean, is there someone on the CNS team that does outreach and education? And is that a person that we can bring into spaces like the Esperanza, like La Plaza, Bayard Farm, places where we know people congregate? I also know a lot of students who fill out their own free and reduced lunch applications and they don't know what they're doing. So really, we need to do outreach with them too. So I'm just wondering if there's a way we can do more education around this.
Yeah, I was just thinking as when Dr. Medina brought up Covered California, I think that the outreach is all of us. And so every meeting you attend, every parent group you attend, everywhere you have contact, talking about, oh, has your child filled out the lunch program form? And we can definitely rebrand it. I think, you know, calling it the lunch program or whatever we want to call it. But I think that education piece is important, that we all are talking about it in a way that's not embarrassing, so that people understand it's not embarrassing, it's okay. So we'll look at that. I don't know that they have staff that can do it, but it can definitely be something that we talk about at our principals meeting, in developing ways in which we can get this information out. But I do think the community outreach is hugely important, and so let's work on that. I'll work with Rick and figure out how we can develop maybe like a community package. I can maybe do a PSA, I don't know, somebody can do a PSA, maybe some kids will do a PSA with me around, you know, completing the form, and yeah. The amount of bills or the cost, Rick and I have looked at the dollar figure of that, and it's actually hurts my heart. And so any way that we can provide kids wonderful meals in a way that we don't have to worry about bills would be great. So let's go for it.
2 final questions for you. And possibly Associate Superintendent Edson can answer this. Do we also cook for other districts?
We do. We have contracts with several nearby districts. We also have partnerships with Redwood Empire Food Bank, and we are looking for opportunities to expand our services to the community at large.
Are these partnerships revenue producing?
Yes.
The second question is our lunch program cost neutral to the district?
Pretty close. We're right there around break-even points. Certainly last year, and I don't have the figures in front of me, with the work that Devin did, that helped tremendously throughout the course of the year. Without having that in front of me, we can provide it in the future to show you exactly where we're at for food services.
We have a comment from the public on this issue, so we're going to call Evelyn Anderson to the podium.
No, not till F3.
Oh, that's public comment. Okay, so I will say one last thing. Here's the thing: if you're the president, you have to wait till the very end. Is like, okay, you guys. I have watched 3,000 lunches, 3,000 days of school lunches. I have supervised 3,000 days of school lunches. I have watched school lunches that for 17 years, school years. And so I've seen stigma, I've seen people lying, I've seen all of it, try to get in those free and reduced things. So this is a system, and I really applaud staff for taking a deep dive into this system, because this system also is not just a financial thing for us, but it also is a teaching, engagement, learning thing for us. Food is passion, and if we can catch kids, it is part of our teaching and learning. So if our system, and I'm very excited, Director Burke, thank you so much, for if we can catch kids in terms of like engagement and fun and interest and learning, this is part of our whole part of education. It's one more system that I am very proud to see that our district is taking a good look at: robust systems, efficient systems, engaging systems, and with passion. I see here a lot of passion there for that, a lot of passion. So really, that's very exciting. I also will say finally that, and my colleagues have talked about this, but that free and reduced lunch, the stigma is real, it's big, it's huge, and the systems that we use to do that just exacerbate it. And so I've been dealing with that for 17 years, and it has to do with how school leaders at their sites also treat lunchtime, right? And how we treat, you know, where people eat, what the places look like, where we line up, all those kinds of things. You know, we're talking about DoorDash, right? We're talking about Uber drivers coming to deliver pizza to the door, and who gets to have that, and who goes to the cafeteria to line up for their, you know, their ID card, that kind of thing. So all of that, I know you're looking at that, and I appreciate that, and we're gonna wanna hear a little bit more finally in the future about how we do that. But that number is so, so important. That free and reduced lunch number is so important because it's tied to every single thing else. And Superintendent Kitamura knows this. I mean, absolutely, but I know this too because it's tied not on, sorry, LCAP money, but it's tied to, for example, IB kids. We push really, really hard for those kids and AP kids to get their free and reduced lunch things in anonymously. So I love this online thing and the whole analytic thing, because then they get free state aid for AP tests, and their AP tests then cost $5.
Well, SAT, we get fee waivers.
Fee waivers for SAT also. So all of that can come back and help students and help engagement, help learning, help everybody. So key number, we absolutely know that. And anyway, thanks for this deep dive into a system, a good system. Welcome, Director Burke. We're excited about it. We want to taste test too.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
And so that was discussion, so we're good with that. And now we're moving to F3, where is the public hearing, and this is where we are going to hear from, no. Well, that's.
She's gonna go in F3. Right. Let's let, so, Assistant Superintendent Spector, can you please preface these two items?
I will preface them both at the same time. And actually, I would like to reference Director De La Cruz's comment earlier in regards to the Child Nutrition Services presentation in having culturally relevant food. We also need culturally relevant and culturally representative staff in our schools. And this public hearing, as well as the next item, are an opportunity for us to do that. If the board will recall, May 22nd, you passed a resolution in support of us to be very strategic and very intentional about advocating for the need to have culturally relevant staff, in particular at CCLA and at the French American Charter School. This evening, the public hearing and this item are specific to the French American Charter School, and it should be noted that there's support from the Teachers Association in this, as well as the community at large, including the Consul General in San Francisco, because the French American Charter School offers that cultural opportunity, that deep dive into the food, the music, the history, as well as the French curriculum that is taught by highly qualified teachers who are native to France that need that additional support as they are credentialed here in the state of California. So we would ask that the board would open up the public hearing and then engage in a discussion in support of us submitting this waiver to the State Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have questions on this?
And next time I'll make sure there's croissant during a discussion.
We are opening the public hearing, and we have a blue card from.
It's okay.
Thank you. I really just want to thank district staff, especially Assistant Superintendent Spector and the HR team and SRTA and you, the board, and the community, everyone who is supporting our teachers and their desire and passion to bring quality education. It's certainly culturally relevant and linguistically high quality to our students. And I really look forward to the day when this topic will no longer be a discussion at board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Anderson. No other cards. We're closing the public hearing. We're moving on to F4, which is an action item, approval of the submission of a waiver to the State Board of Education from the CBEST requirements for teachers from other countries to be authorized to teach in Santa Rosa City Schools dual language immersion schools, which are the French Charter, Santa Rosa French American Charter School, which is what you just spoke to. Do we have questions from the board? Okay, no questions?
Just like to move to approve the submission of the waiver.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve from Director Medina and a second from Director Sheffield. Let's call for the vote.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Montieri?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to our last item of the evening, F5, presentation by the Santa Rosa City Schools for the strategic plan for 2019 to 2024. 5 years.
Thank you, Vice President Fong. First and foremost, I want to begin this presentation by acknowledging, congratulating, just giving a gigantic kudos to this board. The amount of work, time, thought, energy into this draft or version 1 of our strategic plan, mission, vision, and priorities are absolutely to be commended. The direction of the district from the first strategic plan and the beginning of our LCAPs, because those two things coincided, to what was produced over this last spring will definitely be a wonderful guide and framework for our district into the next 5 years. So as we begin, this is really for the public and for the public to begin to see what the board has developed. So let me move down. Go ahead. The board worked with a timeline that is listed here. At each of our meetings, they wrangled through developing ideas, thoughts, drafts, discussion amongst each other in the timeline that you see here. Go ahead. We looked at it in phases, and by the way, Dr. Carlos Ayala, and if you're watching, Dr. Ayala, from where you are, thank you so much for your work. He actually did help develop in phases so that we could be on track and ensure that we were getting the work done, because as you've seen from the group, they do like to talk about things, ask questions, and discuss, which to me is really what a board should be about. So the next thing is the draft mission and vision. And so you have seen this piece of it, the draft mission and vision. They've worked through different iterations of it, but have pretty much stayed consistent to this vision and mission. And so it will be brought forward to the community for input. This is what I kept this in here, you know, the next slide. I kept this in here so just so the public could see how it is that the board came to their decisions. We literally used the finger method for consensus and did have to go back and discuss things when there wasn't enough finger showing. So I did want to show that that was the process. Next slide. Now here's the priorities. So the board has developed 7 priorities, and so the first one was what we would have called college and career ready. The board and I have discussed this in the fact that that is such an overused term. What does it mean? It can either cause divide right from the get-go, or people don't listen because they're tired of hearing it. So the board has come up with a priority called Life-Ready Learners, and these competencies or capacities to be met as a priority. The next, balanced education was a priority in the past strategic plan, but the wording here is much different. What the commitment and the aim for the district reads a whole different way. High quality staff is another term that is still used, but again, you can see that it has a different commitment and description underneath that talks about the values and what the board wishes to see in our staff. Teaching and learning environment and resources. This too was from our last strategic plan, but much different in the way that it shows up about how this board feels around their commitment to teaching and learning. Equity and excellence. This is a new priority. It goes along with the work we've been doing the last 6 years. What I think it calls out, though, however, is really about who our students are, what they bring to our schools, our district, our way of being, and how do we use that to teach in a way that is meaningful and brings to life a love of learning for all of our students. And I think the board has captured that so well in this priority. Family engagement and community partnerships. I love how the board has again called this out specifically and wanting to really truly partner with the community and families. We cannot do it as a school district alone. Families can't do it alone. The community can't do it alone. So this is calling to action, everyone coming together and being committed to providing educational opportunities for all of our families, and that they are done so in an equitable way. There's going to be much discussion from this board and much, I think, action around the term equity. I think that it's used many times in a way that is actually not correct. And I think this board in particular will be sure to be explicit and call that out whenever we see it as a part of their work as a board. I'm so proud of, again, of our board for naming this specifically, and that's sustainable funding. The commitment that they are willing to show and the recognition about chronic underfunding is not something that most boards have called out in their priorities. And so I'm grateful that they have done this so that the board can help and create the conditions where we have to implore our legislature, our communities, our government, anybody and everybody that we are underfunded. So this is just the phases again. Dr. Ayala had that in and I just left it in. So go ahead and go to the next one. So here's the timeline for what's gonna happen. You can see that we're presenting the strategic plan right now to the public, so it's available to the public. Dr. Ayala is working on the survey as we speak. We will launch it August 14th at our next meeting. It will be both in Spanish and English. We will provide access for paper taking of the survey as well. September 3rd and 4th are community meetings. The first will be held at Elsie Allen High School, the second will be at Montgomery. Those meetings will be 2 meetings in one. One will be held in Spanish, one will be held in English. Part of the board will be in the Spanish meeting, part of the board will be in the English meeting. Dr. Ayala will be facilitating the Spanish-speaking meeting, I will be facilitating the English-speaking meeting. On those nights, we ask for input from the community about what the board has developed in terms of the mission and vision and the priorities. On September 30th, the survey will close. That data will be gathered. All of that information will be presented to the board. The board will work through that input to revise any of the priorities or mission and vision as they see fit based on the feedback. And then on October 14th will be a presentation of the revised strategic plan. I mistakenly put the location as a Santa Rosa City School Board. That is actually a Monday. That's so it would actually be the 16th when we were presenting, so that's my fault. That date is actually October 16th, and we'll amend that, we'll adjust that. The next slide. So that is the board's work to date on the strategic plan. We look forward to input from the community. The survey is going to be an excellent way, and really from our last surveys, we got the most input from our online. But nevertheless, the board and I wanted to have FaceTime with the public and to hear from them directly. So with that, I turn it back over to President Fong for any discussion or questions that the board might have.
Board members, any comments?
Yeah, I just had a question actually. For the August 14th meeting, at that point, will we possibly have like maybe a Spanish translation available for people to review or comment in there?
speaking for the board, we are very proud of this plan. We believe that some of it is very new, very bold, and it is something that we really would love to hear a lot of community feedback, because we can't do this in isolation. So we need that feedback. So you can send it to Ed's text, actually. No, you can do it on the comment line. You can come to the meetings. And we'll be looking for that before we make our final decision.
One more question.
Director Medina.
The survey, when does the survey open? Is it the 14th or?
Yes, it'll be launched on the 14th. I also wanted to mention that the youth crew that I was talking about earlier will also be gathering feedback. I'm gonna be actually the one to present this to them and to get feedback from them about what does this mean for them as students? How does it show up for them as students? Or how does it not show up for them as students? And so I cannot wait to be able to present and get feedback from them.
Okay, Director.
Is there a way for them to present to us directly? Or like how exactly are we going to be receiving
They're going to
feedback?
present to you because they're going to be regularly presenting to you because they're connected with our specialist certificate program. We haven't really unveiled a lot of this yet, but it's to come because we're in the process of developing, Dr. Guzman and I and some of our members of our other staff. And so I will tell you, our school board member is from Ridgeway High School. Our youth crew is going to originate out of Ridgeway High School. Remember how we talk about the margins? Well, I don't know that there's any group of students that's more at the margin than our Ridgeway students. And so we are, it makes me, breathe hard. It's, yes, you will see them here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that explanation, Superintendent Kitamura. And with that, we are closed. So I have a